Thank you very much for ISDA team for inviting me. Let's just go for it. Why isn't it? Do I have to do like that? Here we go. Coming from Australia, I would like to start with an acknowledgement to country. The research that we are doing was done on the traditional custodian of the land, that of the Wujek people. I wish to acknowledge the strength of the continuing culture and offer my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So this talk will explore, Here we go. This talk will explore relations such as mutualism, symbiosis, or parasitic among bodies. Bodies which are living, semi-living, institutional, machinic, and more. I will explore these bodies in the context of post-nature, when we desire and attempt to design and engineer a better and more humane nature by paradoxically living without it. This utopian fantasy is being packaged and served to us by artists, scientists, designers, engineers, and industry, leading to post-truth, questionable ethics, and ontological conundrums. Life forms. Am I going to struggle with this? This way. Apologies. Oh, it's coming. Technical problems. Life forms evolve through an interplay of existing traits and their adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Many organisms opt to keep their inside shielded in near optimal condition in order to sustain their biological function through homeostatic equilibrium. When living or semi-living systems are being examined in the labs, in industries, factories, or by the audience in cultural institutions, they are separated from their original context, their milieu, and their natural environment, or the bodies which way they were once part. This mechanism is a violent act of separation, recontextualization, and redefinition. The living artifact is being prepared and manipulated for human needs of exploration and exploitation, whether this is through less obstructive view from the human gaze and or through appropriation of scale to human sensory comprehension, manipulation, and exceedingly recently for the collection of data, lots of data. Now, I'm going to say a trigger warning here, so I'm going to, hopefully it will work. I'll press that. So this is what we were facing when we entered the lab. These fluffy white bunnies were killed early in the morning. The brains were taken into a brain research laboratory, and the body was taken to produce pet foods. We would take the cells over the cornea, put it in antibiotics for 24 hours, and a day later, we would grow cells out of it. I'm trying to relieve you of this image. This is much better, isn't it? A routine procedure of obtaining cells from a primary source, an animal body, shifted our own perception regarding life. We were able to get living cells from something as dead as half a head with no brain, more than 24 hours after the animal was slaughtered. We viscerally realized that life can be extended by culturing cells taken from dead animal. Here, the boundaries between life and death are gradual, and the life or death of the animal is decoupled from life of its parts, the cells. By growing living cells derived from dead flesh with technological support, we were working with entities that were both dead and alive. This was the first instant, as part of our artistic research, that we encountered the poverty of language. Hello? The poverty of language as it relates to life. We felt that there were no words to describe these different forms of liveness. Therefore, we referred to the living fragments from the dead rabbits sustained alive by technology as semi-living entities. Life is embedded and contextualized. However, our society emphasizes the metaphor of life as a code, as information. As a counteract to this masculinist approach, our practice shifted from the semi-living tissue construct themselves to its environment. The vessel, or what we call the techno-scientific surrogate body, the body which hosts these lives and enables survival. The techno-scientific body that supports life out of context. Oh, okay, thank you. Out of context and coerce it to reproduce, to labor, and to provide and labor and provide for our own anthropocentric needs and desires, of course. And this is the first tissue culture flask, if you want, back in 1916. This is the assistant of Alexis Carrel, the father of tissue culture. He has a very interesting and tainted history here in France, which I don't have time to go to, but I would recommend to check that. And this is this kind of surrogate body, a new kind of artificial body in which to grow cell. And this kind of relationship between the life and the techno-scientific body can be seen either as symbiotic or exploitative and extractive. And when we started to look at the techno-scientific body, we realized that there is another phenomena, neo-lifism. What happens that people got so involved with the techno-scientific body and with the technology? And neo-lifism occurs when the fetish of technological approaches to life seems to overshadow the context in which life operates. So for the neo-lifist, technology applied to life is becoming a fetish. Technology stands for and becomes life itself. And let me demonstrate it through an example here. You all know this beautiful sheep, do you? Yes, Dolly? Okay, Dolly, excellent. So Dolly on the left side is Dolly in context. She's beside her parents, and this is Dolly on the right with her offspring. And this is Dolly that is wheeled away from the natural history section to the technology and innovation section at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. How does a museum display Dolly's techno-scientific hype and wonder if she looked just like any other sheep? It is merely by moving her from the context of the living world to the realm of the human constructed machine. So, you know, the original context should be the Natural History Museum, where she's been cared for and then moved to the innovation and technology. It is by fetishizing the technological approach to life rather than emphasizing Dolly as a sheep with her own agency and umwelt. This is a prime example of what we call neo-life. And she's on a Petri dish that's rotating. I will recommend for you to go and see Dolly as a technological artifact on a Petri dish. Now, you think this is a bit taking it far? Let's take it even further. The Wellcome Trust collection have gone one step further in terms of reducing Dolly from a whole sentient animal to a fetishistic icon. DNA? No. This is Dolly's sheet. And sheet is a recurring theme in my talk, so keep it in mind. So now, we're talking about bodies, and I would like to look at the unsung heroes of biotechnologies, the technoscientific body, which is the humble incubator. So the incubator is a simulator of bodies and homostatic surrogate for life out of context. The first incubation systems were invented by the Egyptians already in the 4th century using manure, or in other words, sheet, and rotting material to create heat. This control of natural processes enabled outsourcing the female reproduction body and abundant supplies of eggs independence of the laying hen. However, still, unfortunately, human manual labor was needed, and for the thermodistribution, and the Egyptian would rotate the eggs in interval using their bare hands. The technological tool to automate and regulate temperature is the thermostat, invented in 1620 by Cornelis Drebbel, I'm probably mispronouncing it, to control the temperature of a chicken incubator. It is considered to be one of the first order cybernetic devices. It allows for feedback control. And not surprisingly, it has become the surrogate device for bodies or parts of bodies out of context. The invention of the thermostat enabled care for life forms to be outsourced to the machine. Mechanical incubating was invented in 1749 by René Romer here in Paris, and the environments that cared for chicks were often referred, after they were hatched, were referred to, of course, artificial mother. The first American incubator was invented in 1844 with the ability to hatch up to 360 chicks per batch. The incubator allowed chick production on an industrial scale. By 1896, in Buffalo, New York, Cypher's commercial incubators were as large as a room and capable of hatching 20,000 chicks. It was in the late 19th century and early 20th century, around the same time of the birth of tissue culture, which I spoke with Alexis Carrel, that the use of incubator was extended to act as surrogate to premature human infants. The human body was decontextualized and fragmented. Now, I'm going to talk about it more in the panel on Friday, so do come over. But what I want to say is that, first of all, this was part of, kind of expo, and they were also in freak shows, but also remember that what we do to other living organism of living system will end up doing to ourselves. However, the later development of the human incubator is intriguing, not so much as a technological advancement, as it followed the same principle as chicken and microbiological incubator, but rather because of how it was positioned within, perceived and understood and presented in society. Incubator aesthetic and design of packaging in which the abstracted womb simulator had to do much with capturing the public imagination and played a major role in articulation of the life inside the machine. Jumping to the year 2000, when we exhibited at Ars Electronica as part of the festival Next Sects, and we presented the semi-living worry doll under the title of Tissue Culture and Artificial Wombs. The semi-living worry doll, some of you know about it, but I will continue, reinterprets the story of the Guatemalan worry dolls that deals with contemporary anxieties. Many of you probably bought those. They are now, available in every market around the world. According to the legend, the children tell the worries to the dolls. They can tell one worry per doll, put them under the pillows, and dolls take the worries away. You can only have 6 dolls because you can only have 6 worries. And of course, therefore, we grew and constructed 7 worry dolls. And each one, made from multiple skin cells such as skin, muscle, and bone cells, which were grown over degradable polymer matrix and stitched with surgical sutures. And then people could write the worry to the dolls, or in later installation, they could whisper those worry to the dolls. And the dolls were alive in an exhibition. So therefore, they needed care. And like in the zoo, we had feeding time that people could come and watch us feeding the worry dolls. And again, I'm jumping 18s to 18s later. Oh, you can see the worry dolls here. They're quite cute. Oh, trigger. Sorry, I should have told you. Artificial womb. Okay? So artificial womb, as differently to the incubator, means an attempt to, on top of the incubator, to replicate synthetic placenta. And current research is done in my University of Western Australia. It's under the title Ex Vivo Uterine Environment, which means Eve, which is, of course, a very provocative name. And it's done together in collaboration with Tohoku University in Japan. Going back to Ars Electronica, 18 years later, again, from the context of the lab, the context of the spectacle and then arts and entertainment, the research was presented or performed in Ars Electronica in 2018, almost 2 decades after we presented the semi-living worry dolls. However, something is different this time. The only bodies and labor on stage are the machinic one. All other biological bodies are rendered absent. The display is bare. Again, here we can see the blur between sciences and art, the spectacle and the imagining of future. We can see what bodies and labor are revealed or concealed. We can also see an extreme case of neo-lifism, where the technology stands for life itself. So, going quickly, we have tried to highlight some of the strangers in a series of artistic intervention loosely clustered under the title of the vessel of care and control, which focus on the central place of the incubator as the surrogate body in these new biological frameworks. Here, in Compascubator, we use compost technology to create an incubating, making living systems that look after, as well as consume other living systems in a mix of symbiotic and parasitic relation through a delicate balance of care and control. The project complicates the incubator technology by making it into a living system, a fleshy, smelly, noisy, and messy automaton. In a sense, we enable symbiotic system which may have been assembled by a human, but have some sort of independence from her, a mix of wood, decaying food, feces, shit, worms, bacteria, fungi, larvae, disassociated cells, plastic pumps, and the historically first cybernetic device, the thermostat, all somehow contributing to a composite whole. The work plays with the critique notion of control, optimization, computation, and information to kinship, interdependence, multi-species ecology, and genome instability. Living systems consume other living systems and that do not just become part of, but also regulate them in different ways. The Compascubator explores the relations where context, womb, incubator takes the forefront aesthetic position in the attempt to articulate not only its own agency, but its importance in articulating and transforming the lives it cares for. And again, that's a work by Christine that is going to speak on the panel on Friday, an artwork that is based on the obstetrical phantom, which we also used for this compascubator that was done in England in freezing condition. And look, we have an evidence, scientific evidence here, that we managed to grow cells inside the compostcubator. And now let me take a turn, okay? Let's talk about other aspects of invisible absent bodies. Let's talk about meat without body. So this month, May 2023, is a celebration of 20 years since the first tasting of a lab-grown meat. This event was part of a critical artistic performance that, against our intention, shifted into a consumer product packaged as disembodied, technologically mediated utopia. As part of our research at the Tissue Engineering and Organ Fabrication Laboratory at Harvard Medical School back in 2000, we have grown steak from prenatal sheep cells. They're called skeletal muscles. They are muscle cells. They were harvested as part of a research into tissue engineering techniques in utero. As the research was done in a medical laboratory, we could not eat what we have grown as an artistic expression. For us, the most intimate relationship, whether symbiotic or parasitic, that one can have with the artwork is through consuming it. We were interested in the aesthetic and ontological notion of eating meat from an animal that was never born. 3 years later, again here in France, in May 2003, we were invited to present as part of a first major international exhibition dealing with art and biology, La Art Biotech, curated by Jens Hauser, and presented in La Unique in Nantes, in France. We grew meat from cells for the duration of the exhibition. And on the very last evening of the show, we cooked and served our lab-grown meat in a nouvelle cuisine style. This is, you can see, the menu. This is we went extreme nouveau cuisine. We went better than the French in nouveau cuisine. We grew meat. We grow meat from frogs, of course. We're here in France as a way to maintain irony and critical reflection. We decided to play on cultural sensitivities as to what foods are deemed appropriate for human consumption. The show took place here in France, which has a reputation for its sophisticated culinary tradition and seems to have a strong animosity toward engineered food. We decided to grow frog meat as a symbol of French cuisine, though frowned upon in many other cultures. Would the combination of highly engineered icon of French cuisine transcend food cultures or make it less appetizing? Well, I can tell you that, we jumped here, that out of the 8 people that joined us for this nouveau cuisine styles into this dinner, 6 spat the food. And we can talk about taste and everything later, but we collected all the spat out meat and did a follow-up exhibition called The Remain of Disembodied Cuisine. And why is it running without my intention? But anyway, today you can buy lab-grown chicken nuggets in a restaurant in Singapore, the first country to approve cultured meat for a sale nationwide. The number of startups focused on developing culture has been rising year after year. There are now more than 100 companies worldwide developing cultured meat. Furthermore, a whole field titled biofabrication and cellular agriculture are researching and developing biomanufactured products in an artificial environment, away from the farm and the organism itself, inside sophisticated incubators or bioreactors. So, let's watch
For
that.
some, the sky's the limit. For us, it's a starting point. Because below the clouds, there's a world crying out for change. A change to using less land, less water, to transforming industries that have become leading causes of climate change. At Air Protein, we focused on meat. But to fix it, we couldn't just fix the process. We had to create an entirely new one. So we made meat from air. Introducing MetaMeat, a new food category pioneered by Air Protein. Using novel technology inspired by NASA, we convert elements in the air around us into protein using cultures, then turn those proteins into any meat imaginable. It's where cutting-edge science meets bold ambition to reinvent the way we eat. Because we're not in the business of baby steps. We're here to take leaps. Leaps that let us transform the future of sustainable food with solutions we never thought possible. Leaps that deliver us to a world where meat is delicious and nutritious, and making it is carbon negative.
I hope you're inspired with this uplifting meat from air. Yeah, I can tell you it's done through a technology, that's called precision fermentation. They do take gases from the air and use bacteria that, through fermentation creates proteins. What they don't tell you that this process is energy hungry, that, it's just, doesn't compensate for what it tries to achieve. So let's talk about post-nature. Why is things are running without my, can we go back, please? And let's stay here, please, hold it there. Let's talk about post-nature. Human is part of the industrialization of manufacturing animal products, as I demonstrated, arguably began with chicken incubator, which allows for supply of eggs all year round, and supply of meat without the slaughter of animals. The fourth industrial revolution goes further with the inflation in the promises of growing animal or plant products without the organism themselves. So we started with meat from air. This is another very interesting paper that proposed to grow only the useful plant components without the unwanted and unusable plant anatomy. So the usable we want to grow wood and secondary xylem for, of course, production of materials that we want. But who needs those horrible things called bark, small twigs, root, and leaves? They are waste. By reducing this waste associated with biomaterial production processes. And if we go further, this is Ishra Datar that suggests we can grow chicken without beaks, feather, and sentience. Yeah, sentience is like beaks and feather, a waste part of the animal that has to be eliminated. Even if this is possible, is this a society we want to live in? That sentiency has no value. The so-called fourth industrial revolution promised to bring sentiency to the machine through artificial intelligence and remove sentiency from biological entities through biotechnology and synthetic biology in the name of increasing productivity, efficiency, accounting, utilitarian ethics. Such are the dream of the new techno-class, world ruled by sentient machine while biological labor is free of sentiency. Okay, so let me now look at those three musketeers. Do you trust them? Let's see about that. But let me try and put all those pieces of the talks together. And I talked about incubators, I talked about sheet and other, I talked about sentiency, and I'm going to show you our recent project called 3SDC Decycle.
Compost plus incubator equals compostubator. This pile of compost powers a biological incubator that heats and sustains skeletal muscle cells. The goal is to care for, nurture, and control these cells until they turn into tissue and eventually meat. Inside the device, compost-dwelling microbes heat water in a coiled hose. The warm water then flows to the incubator at the top and regulates the temperature. This particular model contains the C2C12 cell line, which comes from the leg muscle of a mouse. Alkaline hydrolysis is a process whereby bones, meat, animal waste, and other such refuse can be broken down for fertilizing purposes. Patented by Amos Herbert Hobson in 1888, it is promoted today as a form of environmental cremation, suitable for humans and pets alike. 3SDC's innovative alkaline hydrolysis urn will break down meat and animal scraps into a nourishing liquid, which can then be used instead of traditional fertilizer to feed and sustain plant life. A true demonstration of an efficient, waste stream utilization. Farmers know that crops in a field can be adversely affected by nature. 3SDC soilless farming techniques, or 3SDC SFTs, are less likely to feel the brunt of unfavorable weather and solar radiation, whilst providing greater certainty of harvest output. These techniques often incorporate controlled environment agriculture, or CEA, which optimizes plant growth by strictly regulating nutrients, lighting, and pH. In addition to providing fresh produce directly to growing populations, they also allow us to produce fodder for the compost that heats the compostcubator, and thereby renew the cycle. Finally, the control room. 3SDC control systems generate vast amounts of data that provide value and certainty. The strategic placement of various types of sensors collects indispensable information and knowledge, which are displayed on-site, and also online, allowing us to maintain the utmost clarity and transparency of our process. The range of data points towards a controlled agriculture platform that uses technological systems to sustain plant growth inside a specialized, nature-free environment. And without any need to observe the plants themselves, not to mention the sun, soil, wind, and other such fickle elements. To summarize, pop some mouse cells into the incubator, and the heat from the compost will turn it into meat. Insert the meat into the alkaline hydrolysis urn, and break it down into fertilizer. Use the fertilizer to grow crops. Once the crop is grown, eat it, and enjoy it. Or indeed, throw it straight back into the compost to resume a potentially endless cycle of food production. And all without the need for sunlight, soil, or shit.
Okay, maybe it's time in the 5 minutes that I've left to talk about Symbiotica. So I would like to finish with Symbiotica. Symbiotica will shut down next year after more than 2 decades of activities. It is kept semi-living until the last of our students will graduate in 2024. Then the life support tube will be disconnected and there will be no access to laboratory facilities. Now, for those of you, there are some younger people here than myself. I might tell you a bit about Symbiotica. Symbiotica was established in the year 2000. It is the first laboratory of its kind enabling artists and researchers to engage in wet biology practices in a biomedical science department. Symbiotica is or was unique as it enabled creative biological research by non-biologists who are embedded within a scientific faculty at the University of Western Australia. Symbiotica encouraged better understanding and articulation of cultural ideas around scientific knowledge and informed critique of the ethical and cultural issues of life manipulation. The center offered a new means of artistic inquiry where artists actively use the tool and technologies of science, not just to comment about them, but also to explore their possibilities. For many years, Symbiotica existed in symbiotic relation with its host body. A series of restructuring and systematic failures of the host body meant that Symbiotica was identified as a foreign body which does not fit the managerial aesthetics, which cannot deal, of course, with outliers and anomalies such as Symbiotica. Or Symbiotica ongoing critique of the post-nature fantasy may have been a threat for the health of the neoliberal host body. The transformation of the university into a neoliberal instrument causes all sorts of harmful autoimmune pathologies, recognizing mutualistic relationship as parasitic. Or in Michel Serres' words, Symbiotica became the pest that has to be eradicated. So what are the notes to take home, talking about bodies? We are in the center of a perfect storm. In the process of growing rift between humans and the living environment, when we design a utopian post-nature society, when we want an abundance without the consequences, let us not forget what bodies are being replaced, what bodies are being rejected or ignored, and what bodies become invisible and their agency is being ripped off. Thank you. I'm not supposed, what am I supposed to do now? I should ask you, do you have questions? And don't be shy. Yeah, please.
Yes, it works. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your presentation, but it's amazingly interesting for what I heard. And I have one question about the way you interpreted the growing of tissues for fake meat and all that, because they say that in order to not in order to save animals and sentience, to not have need for sentience in an animal that we can eat afterwards, they grow tissues. And I see your point reversing it, that it means that we discard with sentience, but at the same time it is also true, isn't it, that if we could produce food that's not involving killing animals, then it is still would be a good alternative, isn't it? So are you suggesting that this is too much tinkering with the biology? We shouldn't go down that way of producing food without nature? Maybe you commented on this at the beginning, I'm sorry.
This is a very classic, I would say, human needs to feel, we all implicated. I mean, hey, come on, I flew over here all the way from Australia. We all implicated in this perfect storm, and what we're trying is to find ways that we'll feel less guilty. And one of the ways that we're thinking, we still want to consume those protein, those animals, but we can be humane, we can actually take those animals and, rip off the sentiency, and then we can eat them and feel good about ourselves, Now, there is a problem with this kind of thinking that there is an ethical question whether we are allowed or whether we want to look at other organisms as, artifacts that we can decide whether they, have a sentiency or not, and decide to take the sentiency so we can continue, this abundance that we want, but still feel good about ourselves. I find it extremely problematic. I also find it practically, I think there are many problems. You saw the future farming that we are talking about, vast of those kind of bioreactors, metal bioreactors that will grow those proteins. It's have used a lot of energy. Okay, so again, what is sold for you is this kind of vision of utopian, technologically mediated utopia without actually, again, the consequences. And I think this is true about also all our digital technologies. we don't mention how much footprint those digital technologies have. You know, we kind of say, oh yeah, I work digitally, so I won't, you know, use plastic or other thing. But this is, you know, again, you know, all those kind of, the clouds and all the infrastructure that creates this kind of nature-free. We leave nature alone, you know, we can live in this metaverse utopia. It's a fallacy. So there are two things. There is the question whether this is possible, and I doubt that, but also whether this is ethical, that we, for our own enjoyment, say, let's not, you know, let's get rid of sentiency. Let's get rid of leaves. Who need leaves? You know, when we walk in the street and the leaves are on the floor, we don't need them. We'll have a very clean, efficient society. You understand what kind of society you are looking for. And also, as I showed with the incubators, why stop with other organisms? Let's take sentiency of some of the people, of, you know, and you know who people we will take the sentiency from in order to, you know, fulfill our hunger and our, you know, kind of desires. We already do that. We already, I mean, we already semi-living, dependent on technological framework to survive. We already taking sentiency from even, you know, our fellow human being in order for us to enjoy this wonderful conference.
Okay,
Thank you for.
I have a
hear
different
myself
kind
now.
of question. I hope it's okay.
Of course.
If you went back 30 years and you began Symbiotica again,
Yeah.
how would you do it differently? Or are you very happy the way it's finished a cycle?
Okay, so one of the, because I was here in a panel about how do we make, you know, kind of cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, all those kind of questions. When we did Symbiotica, we didn't think about it in those terms. It was Ron and myself with a couple of scientists, Miranda Grounds and Stuart Bunn. We started from bottom up. Actually, I wasn't paid, Ron wasn't paid until he resigned, although he wasn't paid. So it was said, I'm resigning, and yeah, and then they started to pay him. So it started as things also of, we have access. We were lucky in Perth, you know, which is a very isolated place in the world, to have access to laboratories and look at this art form, for good and for worse. And we wanted to share this privilege with other artists. So it started this way, and it became quite organically without, you know, thinking about too much. Then, you know, we started to have some problems, so we started to build some kind of a framework and, you know, forms that people have to fill before they enter, etc. So, and we didn't know where it's going. So, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, I look back and it wasn't planned. So I don't know if I guess when we think about it, our regret or disillusion is a different one. Have we created the monster? You know, because we are, you know, our work is critical. We also wanted to have artists come into the lab to do critical work, although, you know, we didn't want to be the censorship arm. So as long as people asked to have access to the laboratory, that was the condition. And it didn't work. You know, our work became kind of a vehicle for the capitalist neoliberal society. It's actually kind of celebrated as the beginning of the biofabrication field. So in many respects, we failed completely. But I am not sure how you can do it differently. Even this piece we're doing now, when we have people coming to see it, they come to us in the end of, after they're looking around and asking us, you know, can we invest in your company? And we were like, oh my gosh, you know, how, you know, we don't want to be too didactic. The irony is subtle, but yeah. So I am not sure if I answered your question. Yeah.
So my question is about, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. My question is about how you, which methodology you're using once you're offering created lab food or things to people to eat, in the sense of safety rules, if you tell, how you tell people what is inside, or do you manage to talk to the public in any sense in what are the components, or you're just like, no, let's just try? And how is this relationship with offering something created in a lab to the general public?
Okay, so let me tell you a story. I hope it answers some of your question. You talked about health and safety, and So when we grew the first in vitro frog steak here in Nantes, and we had the feast, if you want. First of all, remember it was a long time ago, so the world was less kind of I guess, rigid about things. It was before 9/11 even. And in France, it was, the curators who invited us, and the gallery said, it's okay, don't worry. We can have the feast. We don't need to sign anything. Today, I wouldn't do it, but then, who thought about that? We are very, very responsible. We did a lot of research together with scientists to make sure that the cells we are using are not infected by viruses, they are safe to consume. Again, it was such I would say eating a burger will be more dangerous than eating what we created. We also marinated the meat in lots of honey and garlic that have a lot of antibacterial components, and calvados to help with digestion. And we served this tiny amount to everyone. And again, people, they kind of couldn't swallow it. It basically felt a bit like felt, that you eat felt. It wasn't very tasty with all our attempts. And some spat. One person, I won't mention names, she swallowed it, but it was also hot. So I think she burned a bit of the top of her mouth. And she went to a dentist the following day and, said, I have this something here. And he asked her, what happened? And said, well, I was in this exhibition performance the other day. They grew this, frog steaks in the lab, and, I ate it. And he got really nervous, and he started to use liquid nitrogen to burn that. Okay, to burn the burn. And we started to get emails from her saying, about the infection and all the problems that involve with that. And suddenly, it occurred to us, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But what was beautiful, that in her last email she wrote, I am a philosopher. And for me, art is an experiential thing, and I take full responsibility for this experience. I chose to do that. And I think in a way she took this experience even to the extreme. So we are extremely careful. The last thing we want is, of course, to poison other people, not like many other, startup companies that we know. But then when we do those performances, as you see here, we like to speak to the people around us. And also, this is kind of a way to kind of untangle, to tease out some of the things that we're talking about. Hopefully, I answered your question.
Ionat?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Just a word. The last question, please. La dernière question, s'il vous plaît. Yes. Just a few words. 5 minutes.
Okay.
One question, 5 minutes. It's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, the last question, please. It's like the first, it's a big... okay.
Sorry to start. Just a quick one, but in your talk you mentioned artistic expression.
I mentioned what? Sorry, Paul?
Artistic expression.
Yes.
It was a beautiful talk, absolutely. So on reflection of the industrial complexities and the ethics complexities, I wondered if you would have any feelings or understandings about the artistic expression evolution in dealing with this. Does that make sense?
Yes, I hope so. Yeah, last question, and it's a difficult one. Thank you, it's a beautiful question. Okay. So when we started, again, when we first started to put those kind of semi-living in a gallery, it was the first time that you put, a living biotechnological construct in a gallery. We had to construct a whole laboratory to support it. Yeah, and people got so confused by the mise-en-scène, by the laboratory, while the artwork was the little thing. Not very beautiful, some people may say, that people could not notice. They were kind of impressed by the spectacle of the laboratory. Okay, let me go further than that. Also, in another project, the pig wings, for example. So in the pigwing project, we grew, it was a critique of the hype of the Human Genome Project and critique of DNA chauvinism that I will speak on Thursday with you. And so we thought, that the whole media around the Human Genome Project was very utopic. It's the first, the biggest thing after the invention of the wheel, et cetera, et cetera. It was almost like pigs could fly. We still have it today with certain technologies. So we decided to grow pig wings. Now, the pig wings that we grew were this size, yeah, very, very small. And when we exhibited it in a gallery, usually the media was saying, come and see, the penguins, living or semi-living penguins in the gallery. And people would come with the hope to see, pigs flying, or at least to see movement of, beautiful wings, pig wings in the gallery. The spectacle, we love it. We used to it, we want it. And they would come and they would see those tiny wings in a bioreactor that don't move because they move in a scale that is different to our scale. And they were disappointed. And we were excited about that. We called it the aesthetic of disappointment because we think this is something that, an artist is kind of a device, an aesthetic device to counter the hype. And did that answer your question?
Yeah, they're two early works.
Yeah, and now, okay.
You've got this breadth of spanning this whole area of aesthetics development.
Yeah.
Bioarts, where we're at now. So
Yeah. Yeah, bioart is very difficult, to create really beautiful, spectacular things. But there is a whole new generation that does really interesting stuff. I would say, so yesterday, for example, there was a discussion about we are collaborating with plants, with fungi, and this kind of, it's not a fair collaboration, so we should, also remember that. I think the aesthetic today is falling toward the neoliberal kind of, I call it gadgeting. We're doing those gadgets, or not we, but many artists, and I understand that because that's where the funding are coming from. If you want to show in Ars Electronica, do a gadget. So that's a little bit of critique about that, but I would say, that there's still amazing artists that are doing amazing stuff. So
merci, Ionat, merci.